Heyo, we are back.
We're back.
The Grunge Bible Podcast. It was over, but now we're back. This is episode 89?
91, dude.
91? Oh, yeah, that's right. And this,
Yeah,
99.
this is 91.
91 comes after 90. That makes sense.
Yep, that is generally how it goes, how counting goes.
If my math is correct. So we're excited. This is a really fun one. We had a good time. I'm doing well. Chris, how are you?
I'm doing well. You know the cool thing about 91 episodes?
What's that?
Joe DiMaggio's hit streak was only 56.
Hell yeah.
We're at 91 games. I mean, Jolton Joe, I mean, he hit safely in 56 straight. I mean, we've podcasted successfully in 91 straight. I mean,
yeah. What was Barry Bonds' single season record?
He hit 73 home runs. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. He hit 73. Mark McGwire hit 70. Aaron Judge just hit 62. So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, we're better than all of those guys.
Our records are more. Yeah, we don't miss.
Yeah.
It's like a perfect game so far.
Yeah, it's still building too. That's the thing.
Like a 10-game perfect. 10 games perfect.
Yeah, basically. It's fantastic. So yeah, I'm doing well. Really excited to present this conversation that we have this week. This is another interview that we recorded back in the month of November. So really excited to. We wanted to do more interviews, and we've been doing a lot more of them, and they're a lot of fun. So I hope everybody enjoys listening to them just as much as we enjoy doing them.
Yeah, we had a awesome conversation with Tim Sonnefeld, and for a lot of reasons, this dude rocks. I mean,
yeah,
really special guy, super cool, and has the credentials to back up everything that you're about to hear, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tim, this was such a great conversation to have. I mean, you name it, Tim's done it. You name it, Tim's good at it. So he's a Grammy Award-winning producer, engineer, and multi-instrumentalist who now lives in Los Angeles, California, and he works at Redstar Recording. And how this all came to be is Tim Sonnefeld is Drew McFadyen, our producer's lovely mentor. They've had a relationship professionally for several years, and they've played together. They played shows together, and Drew worked with Tim for a number of years at Red Star. So that's how this all came together, and it was just kind of really cool to, talk with, an individual that taught Drew a lot, because I can see a lot of the qualities that Drew has. They seem to have come directly from Tim, and it was just really cool. And once again, Tim's an East Coast guy, Pennsylvania guy, got some Philly ties. So Ethan, I know you appreciated that. But
oh yeah, we bonded over that in the episode for sure.
Oh yeah, yep. And his resume is really cool. I mean, he was a touring musician in a band. They were signed to a major label for a while, so he's toured relentlessly and successfully. He kind of got his start at Milk Boy in Philly, which is a very famous studio there. And then, he made the move out west to Los Angeles, and it's just really cool to hear people's experiences and, Tim and his story and his path as we get into it in the episode, kind of hearing about how that came to fruition and how just things kind of the next logical step often presents itself, when you're reaching the end of one chapter. And it's really cool to hear just the latitude of experiences that he had. And Tim's a really great guy. This was the first time that I was able to have a conversation with him verbally. So it was really cool to chat with Tim and kind of pick the brain of Drew's mentor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really enjoyed the kind of the building of his career, and how everything kind of played off each other and led to new opportunities and new experiences. And yeah, I see, he's very meticulous. Like, he very, like, just like Drew when they're doing stuff, these guys are very OCD, and that's what makes them an awesome producer and engineer, because they pay attention to the details and they believe in themselves. And that was a theme throughout the episode that you'll hear. And we have a lot of mentors in our world, in the Grunge Bible world, Chris Cafaro and Liederman. There's a few people that are higher up that give us a lot of encouragement, and Tim has done that for Drew, and he did that for us during this episode. So
absolutely,
it was a nice boost to have that conversation with somebody who likes what we're doing and believes in and wants to be a part of the podcast. And so we were jazzed up about that. I mean, you'll be able to see in the episode. It was just a really good time. We ripped on Drew, probably not enough. I would have liked a little bit more.
Yeah, there's always more room for that.
Maybe a little harsher, but we're running out of time at the end. So
right, exactly. And another reason why I really appreciated this conversation, I felt like it was such a good window into the human element that goes behind creating music and creating art and kind of managing personalities and being that confident, assuring voice and kind of getting yourself in the position to be that for other people. It was really, really kind of really cool just to hear Tim's process as to how he arrived at that position to be able to do that. So really excited to present this conversation to everybody. And we're able to have these conversations with people like Tim because of the people who support us, everybody out there who's listening to this at this time, as well as people who have chosen to subscribe, leave nice reviews for us, purchase merchandise, and especially support us over on Patreon. So we have, as you are familiar with, we have a top tier of Patreon supporters who are so kind as to give us $10 a month to help make this podcast run. So at this time, I would like to thank our top level supporters over on Patreon. And their names are What the Fuck's Up, Denny's, Shoe the Shoeless, Seattle 4 Fanboy from New Jersey, Rachel Corning, Nikki Six, Millie, Marianne, Lauren Irene, Jamie Lynn, Carlene Salona, Chris LSMS, our number one fan from Australia, Jade Mercado, Granny Grunge, Fuck Soup, Fresh Tendonitis, Faith Bittner, Brother Nature, Captain Hightop, Kara K, Doug Endy, Christine Shepard, Eddie Vedder got me through my second divorce, The Blue Owl, Alexis Shannon, Alex Long, and Black Hole Sean. So thank you to each and every one of you for your support. As we round out this last month of the year, this has been a really, really fun year for us, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in a later episode, but it really means a lot. When you look back, all of the work that we've done, I mean, the people that support us have been there every step of the way, and we wouldn't have been able to do what we did this past year without those who support us. So really, really thankful for that.
Yes, very thankful. So check out the show notes and the links in bio if you feel so inclined to jump on board. But let's get to the conversation. So without further ado, here is our interview with Tim Sonnefeld.
Shit, something went wrong.
Absolutely. Hey, a little bit of mystery, gets
exactly plenty of mystery.
Yeah, it's good for all of us. So, Ethan, do you want to you want to bring us in for the? We're gonna do this live.
I was just say we'll just go in right now. Yeah, we have Tim Sonnefeld here with us. My name is Ethan Shalloway. I'm joined with Chris, and we're really excited. So, Tim, you were connected through Drew, our producer. So you kind of, let's say, produced Drew along the way to make him where he was when he moved out to LA. He moved out there to kind of chase a dream, and he got connected with you. So we're pretty excited. How you doing today, Tim?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Ethan?
Yeah, I'm doing really well, man. I always, we and Chris talk about it. Once we sit down for these interviews, and a few minutes go by, you kind of settle in, and you're like, it's all good. So I'm pretty excited. There's a lot of good, good people here. So can't wait. Chris, how about you? Are you good?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. I'm doing a lot better now that we're starting, and we're gonna have a nice conversation. Absolutely.
I was hoping we just wouldn't ask Chris.
Yeah, just completely ignore me. Yeah, I'm not here right now. We usually leave
somebody out. Yeah, we usually leave somebody out, but
it's the Philly way. Leave somebody out.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So, Tim, are you born and raised in Philadelphia?
Yeah, I was born in a little town around Philly called Phoenixville, and then
I didn't know you were that close to me.
Yeah, cool. And then I moved to South Philly. I went to college at University of the Arts in Philadelphia, and I moved to South Philly then, and I pretty much spent ages 18 to 35 in South Philly, and then I moved out to LA when I was 35, and I've been out here for however long that is. 42 minus 35. Listeners can do the math.
If our math is correct, 7 years. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's been good so far.
Yeah, that's super cool. So growing up, I grew up in the Northeast, not Philly, obviously, but I grew up in Rhode Island. But seems to me that Philly and the area around it, there's always been such a great tradition of music. So I want to know, like with you, when did you kind of get into music? I guess as being a fan, as starting to play your own music. What was that process like for you? Like, did you grow up in a family where like your parents or maybe siblings were big into music or a band or a genre, or did you kind of find your own way with your friends?
Yeah, it had a lot to do with my family. My mother is just like a huge music fan. Motown Stax. She was always blasting like the Temptations or Stevie Wonder in the car. And then my dad was more of like a rock fan, Zeppelin, Beatles, and then all the way into like weird like Southern, like Molly Hatchet. Like sort of like Southern metal and
range.
shit like that. Yeah, like he was really into a lot of different stuff, and he plays guitar pretty well. And he probably around like 6 or 7, I started just really. He used to do this thing when I was a really little kid where he would play the chords with his like fretting hand, and I would strum, and we would play like Puff the Magic Dragon or some
that's
shit.
Awesome. Yeah.
And so when I was like, it's funny, I have this distinct memory of thinking that I already knew how to play the guitar because he had fooled me into thinking
you had the strum hand down.
Like,
that's all you got to know.
This is easy. And then he got me a guitar. I think in '86 when I was 6, he got me a guitar, and I think it was just that confidence of like, oh yeah, I know how to do this, that I like kind of started to figure it out, and then he started to teach me more shit. So I mean, and instantly, like, I was already a huge Beatles fan. I would go in to my bedroom and I'd just like try to figure out Beatles songs and fail miserably, but still like be like, oh, this is pretty cool. So it was pretty early. I mean, I just always wanted to play the guitar, and that was the first thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's super cool. It's always interesting to hear, because it's like you have people that weren't introduced to music at all by their family, and their family didn't understand anything, and then you're coming from a family where music was a large part, and you're always listening in the car, and your father playing as well. So it's a really, really cool introduction from a young age. So did you have friends growing up in middle school, high school that were also into it, and did you get together with them? Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, like I had, by the time I was in sixth grade, I had a band. And that was, I mean, this podcast is called The Grunge Bible. So I was excited to do that because that was very integral in my development. Like, I mean, 1991, we all know that 1991 was fucking crazy.
Yeah, that was the year.
That it was just like, I was 11 years old. I was just getting good enough at the guitar that, and between like 91 and 92, some of the things that took me a little bit of time to discover, but like, I mean, that first Pearl Jam record, Nirvana's Nevermind. What else happened in 91? I think
Soundgarden. You had the Chili Peppers, even with Blood Sugar Sex Magic. I mean, 1991 was one of the best years record in terms of album releases, for sure.
Was Smashing Pumpkins Gish 91 or 92?
Gish was 91 as well. You're right.
Gish was 91. That was a huge record for me. Rage Against the Machine's debut.
Yep, that was 92.
Either 91 or 92. That was huge. And like that, like especially the Nirvana record and the Rage record, there's something about the guitar playing on both of those records. I mean, just Tom Morello and Kurt Cobain, just fucking geniuses. And there was this ease, like it was very easy for me to play. Like I learned those songs. Like I had every lick on both of those records down within like an hour of getting the CD, and I was just like, that was when it really clicked that year. It was just like, holy shit, I can do this. Like I'm as good as Tom Morello. And that's what I thought. That's what my 11-year-old. Yeah, this is easy. But, but there was just this like simplicity and complexity to both of those records, the Rage record and Nevermind. The combination of simplicity and just absolute intricacy that made me feel like, oh, I'm doing this. And that was pretty important.
That's awesome. So you said your first band was when you were in 6th grade. Did you start off playing like some heavier rock stuff? Did you kind of obviously play the Nirvana and the Rage type of songs, or did
Exactly.
You...
I mean, that was
Okay.
we were basically like a Nirvana Rage cover band,
Yep.
and then we wrote songs.
Oh yeah,
you know,
they're the best.
but you know,
Oh,
it was
yeah.
and it was just we were called Abacus. It was terrible. It was
I
it
love
was
that.
rad.
Yeah.
But you know, we
Abacus.
just hung out in my friend Topher's basement. Topher
Topher.
Valente, shout out. He was later a road manager of one of my bands. But we just hung out in his basement, and like all the girls would come over to his house. He had this huge house in Valley Forge Park, and like we would like put on concerts on his back porch, and it was
Hell
just
yeah.
like girls started looking at us different, and it was just like this rocks.
Dude,
Yeah.
being in
Yes.
a rock, I always say that being in a rock band in high school is, you know, I've done some cool things, but I feel like that is the coolest, like that is the epitome of like, you know, I don't know, stardom. Like, because all the kids, they don't have, you know, they don't have like big bank accounts. They don't have this. They don't have, it's just, they're just
Yeah.
kids. And you're just kids. You have no worries either. You're just playing music because you love it. It's not your
Yeah.
job yet. It's not
Yeah.
your only way of, you know, making it to the next level. You're just playing with your buddies who are, you know, trying to graduate high school. Like, oh my gosh, dude, it was the best thing I ever did. And I always tell people, I was
Yeah.
asked, when you started playing with other people, because that's the best thing you can do is when you start an instrument, like you got to practice on your own, but really playing with other people that's how I really pushed my levels and how I loved the drums. Me and Drew started jamming, and we just started playing. And
Yeah.
then you introduce other people, and you just get addicted to it.
Yeah, it's intoxicating. It's fun, and then these. I mean, of course, I ended up in the music industry, so of course those skills translate. But I feel like they translate to anything. Like it's team building, it's morale, it's people skills, it's it's all that stuff. Just like
Right.
learning how to interact with people, keep people happy, even when you don't like the bass player's fucking shitty song. Like you're still gonna play it because he's in the band and you're stuck with him. And
You're
I don't want to
15
learn
and
how to
can't. Yeah.
Exactly. I don't want
And
to. I don't want to play the bass. I want to play lead guitar. Fuck you, buddy. Fine, we'll play your shitty song. But
Yeah.
there's something really. And sorry to the bass player from Abacus, because it really sounds
it's
like I'm
all good.
trashing him.
Prayers up. Prayers up for
but-
him.
Yeah. But I mean, it's just a hypothetical situation. But yeah, it is. It's just it's the closest thing that somebody like me who was not athletic was going to be. Like I wasn't going to be the captain of the football team.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was the closest thing to like, oh yeah, this is a thing I do. And,
So
like all the groups of kids in high school kind of like the kid that plays guitar in the cool band because it's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, he's accepted.
Well, so I have an
Yeah.
important question then. So, were you the high school's top band, or was there a rival band? Because there's probably usually two. There's always two that are kind
There
of
were
like
three.
Like, okay, there were
Oh, the
three in yours?
trifecta.
There's
There were
always
three,
like talent
and they
shows. When
were-
talent shows come around, there's a little
Oh,
bit
yeah.
of beef and there's a little something going on.
And they were all pretty good. Like everybody, I mean, like none of us were writing good songs, but like
No.
the instrumentalists were all like, there were in the other two bands, like the guitar player was pretty good, the drummer was pretty good. So, and it was a really friendly rivalry. We all tried to, I mean, we shit talked a lot, but we would all play together. We would get
Play
on
shows
stage
together,
with each other and play shows together. And whenever we would put on our like weird shows at Topher's house in his backyard, all those, the other
Oh, yeah.
bands would open up for us. We got to be the headliners though. 'cause
Oh,
we
yeah,
had-
absolutely.
We had the back porch,
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Home field advantage.
Dude,
That's
it's so
awesome.
similar. It's
Home field
it's all similar. I'm
Isn't
like
it funny?
thinking-
It's like the same
Yeah.
story over and
It's
over.
the same
and you,
shit, yeah.
And you think it's your own. You're like, this is so individual. Like, I'm the only one who's experiencing this. No. There's
Yeah.
75,000 other bands just like you.
Yeah, one time
is
we played it. One
yeah.
time we played a show just because I'm thinking about it. I mean, there's another band that it's not that we did. Yeah, it's not that we didn't like them, but they were doing different songs, so they were playing them.
Yeah.
And they were pretty good. And I was like, yeah, if we played that song too, we could, we do it we do it better. So we did the same shit. And one time we played a show. It was the classic rock. The rock club, the rock and roll club. There's like a club 10th period that would play, and they put on a show at the coffee shop, and we played, and we didn't. With a couple of the guys that were in the club were like in this band, so they went on last. But so we played, and we used their drum set. One of the guys and I remember Drew asked him, he's like, I got this good idea, like, I'm gonna stand on the drum set, like I'm gonna jump up there and stand. And I was like, that's a fucking awesome idea. And I don't know if he did it before where he just stood on mine, but I had an old beater kit, so it was fine. But I remember he jumped on this other guy's kit and like caused a problem. And he was like, he played up there for a little bit, and the guy like couldn't believe that he did it and whatnot. And it was rock and roll. We didn't really care, but it was really funny because I remember that specifically. Drew was like, "You think I should stand on it?" I was like, "Oh hell yeah, dude!" I was like, they're going last. I don't know. I mean, yeah, do it.
A similar situation. I remember once a kind of rival band at one point borrowed one of my amps, and they were playing before us, and he put it up on a chair so it was a little higher so that he could hear himself better, and it fell off the fucking chair, and then it was broken for our set. And then I had to use like my beater backup amp that sucked, and I was like, I tried to be cool, but I was like a little bit pissed. I don't think I could hide it. I think I got a little mad at his name was Matt, and I didn't mean it. I'm sorry, Matt. He was really good. He's still a really good guitar player. He's a
Grunge
Nashville
Bible
now.
Podcast is the point where we can atone for all of the wrongs that have happened.
Exactly.
So glad we're getting out of the way. It's so funny though listening to you two go back and forth about your band stories, because I have no musical background in terms of playing. I was certainly not in any bands, but I'm definitely jealous, and I'm noticing the fact that like that time period in your life and like harnessing like music as a passion and as like a communal thing, like it feels like it's almost like an intoxicating thing. So like at what point were you're smack dab in the middle of this scene and you're playing, and there's a lot of commonalities between everybody's experiences, but at what point, Tim, do you kind of think like, shit, like this is so fun, like I want to do this, like I want this to be a part of my life moving forward? Like, was that ever a conscious choice that you made, or was it just kind of a natural progression of the bands that you were in and you just started to earn more opportunity?
That is such a great question. And there's not an easy answer.
Yeah.
I don't think that I really chose it. Like that's one pretty significant thing that I think about a lot still. I was making music, like slight successes were happening in my life through high school as far as like being a musician. And then when it came time, I never thought about college. I didn't give a shit. I was like, fuck. I figured I wasn't going to go to college. I was like, narcissistic enough to think like I'm going to be a rock star. It's fine. Right. And then when it came time, like my mother, all of a sudden, like 3 months before like all the college shit was due, my mom was like, "You got it. What are you doing? You're crazy. You're an idiot." And I'm like, "Oh shit. Okay, mom. Yeah, I guess so." And I applied to one school. I was like, "Oh, you can go to," I didn't even think of, I was like, "You can go to college for music? That's a thing you can do?" Sure.
Yeah. And
I was accepted on a very good scholarship into University of the Arts jazz program. And I was like, "Oh, okay, this is cool." And then I met 4 other like-minded people there our first year, and we formed that band Town Hall, and we went on the road like instantly. So I quit school, and it was really easy. But like it was just that sequence of events that happened that I really didn't think about. Yeah. I just honestly figured like, oh, I'll go to school. I was assuming I was going to be like a journey at the age of 18. I was like, all right, I'll be like a journeyman jazz musician, like touring, playing jazz clubs for $100 a night, which seemed luxurious to me at the time. I was like, oh yeah,
you get paid a few $100 to play some music. You're like, hell yeah.
Oh yeah, exactly. And I didn't think about the fact that I'd be living in abject poverty, basically, if that was the way that it had gone down. But luckily it didn't. But yeah, I mean, it was just, and then, Town Hall was briefly signed to RCA, and then all of a sudden I'm getting introduced to all these like incredible, legendary producers, engineers, other musicians, and, and it once again, like you said earlier, intoxicating. Like it was just like, holy shit. Like the guy that signed us, Brian Malouf, he was the vice president of A&R for RCA Records. He mixed fucking Under Pressure by
No way.
Queen and David Bowie. Like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? It's
and
just
he's here talking to me, wanting to sign my band.
And he's like, he likes and he's talking specifically about our songs that I wrote.
Yeah.
And he's like, I want to demo out this song because I think it, and it was just like, holy shit, this is what's happening. And it was. And I look back, and if I would have known what I know now, I might not have signed on for the whole thing. Because, being in the music business is strange work, and you have to end up, like, later on in your life, you have to start figuring out creative ways to make a living, because obviously we got dropped pretty early on into that deal, and, it didn't work out. But I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Right. Yeah, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about the time on the record and whatnot. But speaking of, like, when I graduated, it wasn't like I'm gonna definitely go and do this. It was like I can't give this up. Like I didn't know what I was gonna do in music, but I knew that like it would always be a part of me. And I kind of I chose athletics for the time being, but like I always knew that like it's never going away. And I think for you, you just kept the same thing for you. You just you got in the band and just kept going to the next sector of being involved. So I looked up the band, and we saw the documentary on YouTube that you guys have, and watched a little bit.
That's funny.
We cut in. I love those old footage, the old footage and whatnot. And I'm not gonna lie, I thought the band would be a little more heavy for some reason. I kind of, like I said, I pegged you as like a hardcore, but I loved. I mean, the singer's voice is awesome. You guys you had some like Dispatch or some Sublime-y type, kind of hooks and
Definitely
whatnot.
those.
And really, really good guitar work, obviously. So, how long was that stint for you? And what was it like making music with, and being like that, it was like your sole, I mean, I'm sure you had other jobs during the time, but.
No, we didn't. We made a living. I mean, like barely, but we made a living. We toured, our old, road manager, Topher, who was my drummer in my first band. He recently let me know, he was like, we were on the road 300 days out of the year from like 2000 to 2007 or something like that.
Gosh.
And then it started to slow down, but we were constantly on the road. We barely had, we all had, none of us had jobs.
Was it nationwide? Have you played in almost every city?
We played all 48 contiguous states,
Nice. That's awesome.
And we did, I think, and man, it was a great time. I mean, we spent a lot of time on the road. It was really fun. I'm trying. It's weirdly a blur, it was. I didn't think it would end. There was always on the horizon. There was always this other label that wanted to sign us, and there was always this thing, there was always this promise of like, this is about to happen. And it never really did, but it was amazing. It's funny, the town hall that you hear in that documentary is also what we refer to as Evil Town Hall. Which Evil Town Hall was really fun and really great. But so George Stanford, lead singer of the band, he's amazing. He lives right up the street from me. We still collaborate on music together to this day. One of my best friends in the whole world. So me and George and Kevin, the drummer, kind of started the band at first, and then Mark and this guy Nate Skiles joined. By the time that documentary was filmed, that was right after Nate took a gig with Amos Lee. Okay. He was Amos Lee's guitar player for years, and Amos had just gotten signed to Blue Note Records, and he was a good friend of ours. And Nate was like, hey guys, this is great and all, but like this guy Amos actually has a deal with Blue Note, and like he's paying like, I don't know what it was, like probably like $500 a gig or something, and like we were all making, we were literally just making enough to pay the rent and pay for the gas and like buy a round of groceries every week. Like that was about what we were making. And we had a landline. And that was what we were getting. So he was like, I really gotta like, I'm 27 years old. This is ridiculous. Peace. And so then we like kind of regrouped. We hired Dave Strime, amazing keyboard player who's actually now currently Amos Lee's piano player. The band, there's a lot of commonalities between Town Hall and Amos, but and so we, that was sort of the beginning of the end of that band. So the band that you hear there, that doesn't really sound anything like the band did right up until about 2 months before that point.
Yeah.
But it was weird. I mean, we kind of sounded closer to like the band, like Leave on Helm, Take a Load Off Fanny. That was kind of our vibe.
I love
that kind of thing.
That's super cool. So it's like just this continual process of relentless touring for, several years. And, like you said, just continuing to find a way to make it happen. You're on the road, you're not really expecting that it would end. So like when you got to the end, was it like, one of those things where it just kind of, did it fizzle out, or was it a conscious choice of like, hey, this project has run its course and, we're all going to move on to different things? Because after that time, you started getting into, the studio work and producing and everything. So kind of like at that point in your life, like, seems like I want to know, like, did it follow the trend of like, hey, this just makes sense as like we can continue doing this, or was it like a conscious shift for you of like, I want to shift from playing in a band to studio work?
It was really sad. I remember we all actually gathered in my living room in South Philly. We all like sat around a table, and so we had borrowed, like, I'm going to say the number wrong, but something to the tune of $40,000 from this guy that owned a restaurant in the suburbs of Philly, who may or may not have been connected, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we had kind of gotten some threats about it, and we were kind of legally looking at options, and like continuing under the name Town Hall, we had signed a contract with this guy, and the record that we made had not sold, and it was, we were at this point, and we were just like, okay, I guess if we dissolve the name of the band, then we can, maybe we'll be scot-free here. That'll be good.
Right.
He ended up chasing us down and getting a few $1,000 out of each of us anyway, which was sort of weird and scary, but regardless of that, George actually ended up getting, in the interim, right after we had dissolved the band, George got a record deal with Sony, and then Sony had a huge shakeup, and George's A&R guy moved to Universal, and then he got a deal with Universal, and I wrote and produced some songs on that, and so that was sort of the bittersweet ending of it. It was like, okay, well, we're not going to all be in a van together making music with our best buddies, but at least I get to, do some songs with George, and we get paid really well for it. And it was
made it a little easier.
And that was my first major label record that I produced, song wrote, engineer, and that was sort of the gateway for George and I to both get into like the actual music business, not just the like day by day touring, literally killing ourselves on the road vibe, so that it was, I don't know. I think that answers your question.
Yeah, it absolutely does, because it makes sense. It's just kind of like, I think most of the time when we make decisions in our lives and for the trajectories of our lives, both professionally and personally, it's never a great declaration that I'm going to shift and do this. Mm-hmm. It's like, all right, well, this opportunity is in front of me. Let me go, write and produce some songs for a friend of mine. And next thing you know, it's like you take on another project, and then, 6, 8, 10 months later, you're like, wow, like I'm in the music industry now in this capacity, and then you just run with it. I feel like all of the best, the best chapters start like that, and especially it sounds like that was the smoothest transition possible, because like you said, I mean, you all devoted so much time to Town Hall and so much of your energy and passion, blood, sweat, and tears into it that anytime something like that comes to a close, I mean, there's got to be a lot of emotion at play there. So it sounds like it was a great opportunity for you to kind of shift gears and still put yourself into the music, just in a little bit of a different capacity.
Exactly. That's exactly what happened. It was great.
Sick.
Sick.
Great.
Nice segue, Ethan.
I just spoke on behalf of Tim. I'm your representative now.
Yeah, so I guess moving into, starting the producing side of your music career, obviously, like Drew took a risk and moved out. Was there did you feel like you were taking a huge risk kind of entering in, and do you feel like you were behind, or was all that experience just really set you up to kind of move in like a much more prepared way? Because I don't know how much schooling you did with producing, or if you had a mentor like maybe you and Drew or somebody. So how prepared were you to kind of go in and start working and cutting stuff, and how was that initial grind to get going? Because I know that's just like an artist trying to grind. I feel like producing, you got to put in your time too before people really trust, I guess, outside of your close friends and bands.
I had a really unique situation, which I don't really know anybody else in the music industry that ended up coming into producing full time the way that I did. I was really lucky. There's this amazing studio in Philadelphia. It's still there. They've moved to North 7th Street in the city, but at the time they were in Ardmore. It's a studio called Milk Boy, and Milk Boy the studio. And the owners, Tommy and Jamie, we had made the final Town Hall record there, which was the record that we had borrowed $40,000 from guys who were connected.
Yeah.
And so I already knew them. They had already watched me produce a record because I produced that Town Hall record. Me and George co-produced it. One of the owners, Tommy, had engineered it. And so he had watched me work. He had seen that I kind of knew what I was doing, at least. And when they heard that Town Hall was going to stop touring and that we were about to make George's major label debut, he was like, hey, do you want to be a staff producer here? And so I was like, of course. And so they started giving me clients. And so there's this innate trust that happens when a client walks into a professional recording studio and there's an enormous console and huge speakers and guitars hanging everywhere. They trust you. Kind of, it's just like, oh yes, this is a professional environment. This guy has the trust. Yeah. This guy has the trust of the people who own this building or whatever.
Right.
So obviously he can produce my music. So I had this really cool leg up, and local Philadelphia musicians who, I can't say enough good things about the Philadelphia music scene. The talent level is just amazing.
Yeah.
And local Philadelphia musicians started coming. When the Roots had their little thing where they kind of got the Kimmel show, or the Fallon show.
Mm-hmm.
When they got the Fallon show, Leonard Hubbard, their original bass player, left the group. And he just happened to walk into that studio and be like, I want to make a record. And I happened to be the guy who was sitting there at that moment. It's just like all these incredible things. That happened, I think, in 2007. And so all these incredible things happened just because I was in this place that was respected,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't my talent. At that point, honestly, I had no fucking idea what I was doing. But it was like, people trusted me.
Yeah, so it sounds like the perfect situation where you were given that level of trust and you were given that kind of latitude to learn and to grow and to, like you just said, that it wasn't a talent of yours when you first began, but I'm sure in the years to come, because you were given that room to grow and you were given that trust by the owners, that it did become one of your talents. Because I feel like there's probably got to be a level to it that, you can only learn so much without doing, and that the best learning about this, and the best practice just comes through actually doing it, I would assume, right?
100%. And that was, and I had done some producing and some engineering before then, and a lot of session musician work, but it wasn't until it was like the focus of my life, and that it was kind of like, well, if you don't want to start, looking for a job,
right,
you're gonna have to make enough money doing this to survive. So fucking get your shit together, bro.
Yep.
And it was exactly like that.
Yeah, that is definitely a unique, and like we said, I think it kind of echoes that theme of like it was the, based off of the interactions in your path so far, it was the step that, laid itself out in front of you, and that you were, because of the work that you put in prior to that, you were able to take that and take advantage of it. Now, you were with Milk Boy for several years until you moved to Los Angeles. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I was making music there for a long time. Incredible place. And
do you have any favorite memories or favorite lessons that you learned from your time at Milk Boy?
Oh, plenty.
A good story, I guess, is what we're asking
yeah,
for here.
it's good story time. Let me. I need to find one where I don't talk any shit or name any names. Let's come back. I'll be thinking about a good one, and we'll come back to it. I'll figure one out because I'm thinking of one, and I don't know how to tell it without talking shit.
So another question I was going to ask, because, just contrast the East and the West Coast. So not only if you could speak on the difference in music scene, but also the difference in artists that you kind of ran into for Philly, like the Philly music scene, producing people in Philly, and then going to LA, and then you have a whole different clientele, and it's a whole different pace. So how much different is that? And is it what you expected when you moved out there? I mean, did you know that you had to go out to LA, or do you think that, like, do you ever think like I could have kept doing it in Philly or something like that? But the differences that come to your head.
A big difference, and I hope a lot of fellow Philadelphians hear this podcast, and I hope that they don't take what I'm about to say the wrong way, because I love Philadelphia. They will. Yeah, I know my people. I know you fucking jabronis. All right. So
jabroni, I love that one.
So, in Philly, there's the talent pool is just so amazing, and there's this like sort of like small town mentality that Philly almost has, where I think a lot of the musicians there, they just love making music, and they make music with the people that they've been making music with in Philly forever, and they don't think of it on a national or a global scale. They're like, I'm just making my little local record, and that's what we're doing. And it sucks because I think that the talent pool in Philly is world class, and there's something about it where a lot of the people aren't taking themselves seriously enough.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people in Philly that do, but
that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And when you're here in LA and you're making music, the goal is to reach the world. Like every record that I'm making out here, usually the artist believes in themselves 100%. They're like, I'm a fucking star. I'm doing that. And there's something really incredible about that. I believe in the law of attraction, and I believe that when you put yourself in that position and you say, I'm making this music for the world, you're much more likely to reach the world than when you're just like, it's cool. Yeah, me and my buddy Bill fucking made some cool songs. Awesome.
Yeah. It's a great time in my life. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that's a big difference about the way, and it's the thing that I was conscious of, and that I think I was guilty of in Philly, just being like, yeah, I would always kind of do this thing where I'm like, I'm just here in Philly. And especially in the early days of Milk Boy, we weren't in the facility that they're in now. It was a little bit of a mom and pop shop. It was a beautiful studio, world-class equipment, but I kind of thought of it as like, like if I was in New York at Avatar Studios, or if I was in LA over at the Village Studios, I could make a record that really sounds like the records here, I don't know if I could make a fucking world-class sounding record. I ended up making some world-class sounding records there, but I didn't understand the difference between those two things for a little bit of time. You know what I mean? It took me, there was a learning curve.
Yeah, people love the mom pop shops, but then it's also like it can be like a ceiling because you want to keep it you want to stay small enough to have that feel where it's like, I know what you're saying. It's a great comparison.
The ceiling. I mean, that's sort of a word I was searching for during that whole explanation. It's like there isn't a ceiling when you're making music anywhere, right? But for some reason you think that there is, and And I even know people out here in LA that are extremely talented, and I don't think they believe in themselves enough, and they put a ceiling on it. Well, like, oh, well, this is just some stuff I'm working on. No, man, it's the shit. It's, it's, if you believe in it and you push it hard enough, it's hard to push something that you don't believe in, too.
Right.
Like, it's hard
Exactly.
to be proud of something that you made if you're like, it's okay, and people feel that when you, I was just in the studio actually the other day. I was at an incredible legendary studio that I won't mention because I don't want anybody to know who I'm talking about. But an artist came in, this incredibly talented artist, and she wasn't involved with our session, but she just had heard some of the stuff and was interested and came in, plugged in her phone, played a few songs, and like she would start playing a song, and like a minute into the song, she'd be like, yeah, that's kind of that. And she'd hit stop. And it was like, no, like, we want to hear this. Number one, it's really good. Number two, and it's kind of obvious that you don't believe it. Number three, because you're stopping it. And
Right.
that gives me a little bit of pause, just as far as like, what are you doing? Anyway, but I'm not trying to talk shit. Once again, this person was extremely talented, and I hope that she figures that out, because it's, I feel like that's something that can hold people back.
Yeah, absolutely. So was this realization that you had, in this desire to kind of work with people who, had a mentality different than what we were talking about of like the mom and pop type thing? Was that a driving force behind your move to Los Angeles to go out to work with Redstar, or was it just kind of, an opportunity that you had?
Moving out to LA, Redstar just happened to happen. I mean, I just knew this guy, David Kalish, who's an incredible, legendary session musician. He's currently playing keyboards with Social Distortion. He's on the road with them as we speak.
Yeah.
And by trade, he's a session guitar player, but he's a good enough Hammond organ player and piano player that they're like, you're our guy. He's great. I just knew him through various other things. This woman, Sharon Little, that I made a lot of music with. He had played guitar when she toured with Robert Plant and Alison Krauss. He was her guitar player. And he's from Philly, actually, too. So I knew him through a million different things. Redstar was just kind of an extra little bonus. Every time I came out here to LA to work, I would see David, and he'd be like, hey, if you ever end up in LA, like, you're always welcome to be maybe a staff producer here, or, we can work something out. And so that was nice to know that I had maybe a landing spot when I got out here. But honestly, moving to LA, it was, necessity being the mother of invention. The Philly music scene hit a really weird little slump around 2014, 2015, around when I moved. And I think a lot of my work had been kind of supplemented by the Roots, just the amazing hip hop and neo soul scene that was in Philly because of them. This whole scene that they had cultivated. When they left, that scene started to drift to New York.
Okay.
And I kind of woke up one day in 2014 and looked at my calendar, and I was like, holy shit. Like, I don't really like anything that I'm working on. And that's not true. There was definitely shit that I was working on, but that I liked, but a lot of the stuff I was working on, I liked. I wasn't getting paid much or anything for. But it was kind of this thing where I was like, holy shit, like, I'm not really making a good living right now, because all of the really great neo soul, hip hop, R&B work that I had been doing has now moved to New York. They took that scene with them, and I either have to move to New York or LA right now. And LA just had a few more connections for me. So
Yeah.
it was a necessity thing. It was like once again, I've had a few moments in my career where it's just like, all right, Tim, do we keep doing this, or do we just like try to get like a traditional career? And, and that was one of those moments. And I'm very glad that it went the way it did, because I'm glad to still be in the music industry.
Well, it kind of brings up another question I wanted to ask. When you're working with music, and I'm sure your selection process has changed over the years, but it sounds like, you know, the neo soul and R&B and hip hop, that's kind of like your in your Q zone. That's what you really like to work with. Am I correct?
Q zone.
Is that right?
I like that
Was
term.
that was that
That's
I
good.
think you should leave reference?
Yeah,
Or was that yes?
It's right in
All
your
right.
Q zone. You're gonna be a star.
Yes.
You're gonna be a star. He's like, fuck.
So in my Q zone.
Dude, oh man, you are right. We are right on the same path.
Good,
I
we're
knew
on
it.
the same wavelength. God, what a great show.
Shout out to Tim Robinson for all the people out there that know him.
Yes.
But yeah. So is that your Q zone?
Hip hop and R&B has always felt very in my Q zone. It always made a lot of sense to me. I was also lucky early on, around the same time that I started playing in bands. There was also this really awesome guy, Ernie White, who kind of got me into the Philly church scene, like the black church scene, and I got to make music. I was invited into that space to make music there, and it was just a life-changing experience. And all of that translated very well to R&B, neo soul. Just it's a whole different vocabulary from rock and roll where I had been before then. And you know, and still, I just still have so many connections from that world that are so incredible. And yeah, so speaking to that, yes, that shit is in my Q zone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've been so lucky. I've been able to make, you know, really cool R&B, hip hop, gospel records. One of my earliest records was a record for this legendary gospel group called the Dixie Hummingbirds. I don't think I would have had any idea how to make that record had I not been invited into the church scene early on in my life.
So nowadays, do you kind of like, like when people come to you, is it kind of like, oh, you should actually go to say, and then give one of your buddies, like go work with them. They have a better sense for that type of music, or how do you kind of go about choosing who you work with nowadays? Or did you ever feel intimidated working in different genres that you weren't as excited for?
100%. I mean, I still feel intimidated. As a matter of fact, the last 3 days I just worked with a little production collective that I'm working for, and one of the guys is really big on the smooth jazz scene, and I realized I've never made a smooth jazz record, and the assistant, we were talking, and the assistant engineer asked me, like, well, what would you do if you had to make a smooth jazz record right now? And I'd be like, I'd hire him, because he knows what the fuck he's doing. And then, maybe I'd learn what I was doing on the job. And there's still a lot of that. I mean, I've been doing production at this point for about 20 years, probably, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. But still, if I find myself uncomfortable in a situation where I am doubting my abilities, I'll always, if the budget allows, I'll hire somebody that I know actually knows what they're doing, and I'll do my best to learn from them on the job. Yeah. There's still a lot of on-the-job learning every day, honestly.
Yeah. Everything's a little different, so I feel like, that makes sense. And, and there's so many different, variables with the different genres that I'm sure that you don't interact with when you're working with certain, other genres.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I recently, there's been a lot of country music that's kind of come my way recently, and it's something that I wasn't, I've always been enamored with country guitar and I can chicken pick enough, and I can like play decent country guitar, but I hadn't made a whole lot of country music. And then all of a sudden I'm making a lot of country music, and I'm 100% learning on the job. And I'm just lucky that like a lot of the session musicians that were already in place for some of these projects were just legendary country pickers. And so it was like, I can just lean on them and, it's good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just like one of the other themes that's like always wanting to and always having the opportunity to kind of add different things to your toolbox and acclimate and get acquainted with different areas that you might not have had experience with, or you didn't think you would have the opportunity to have experience with. And I think one thing about that is, I mean, covering all of these different genres, all of these different geographic areas, people from all corners of the states, all corners of the globe, probably even. It's got to be at different times. It's got to be a little challenging, and you've probably had different experiences and varying degree of difficulty of kind of managing the different personalities that you might be working with, because obviously everybody's got to be different. And I'm sure that your experiences as a musician in a band, like we said, playing 300 nights a year, kind of learning people skills, learning, to interact with crowds and different people. Like, I'm sure that had to help you, but is that still kind of a constant battle, or something that you always have to be aware of, is just managing all of the personalities and, getting everybody on the same page to create the best product possible?
100%. I mean, I think most of the job of producing music is actually psychology.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to keep the morale up. Most recording sessions are 10 hours long. It's kind of a long day.
That's a lot of time, right?
And and every artist, no matter how successful they've been, is going to have some self-doubt within that day.
Right.
And managing an artist's self-doubt, trying to be a cheerleader for them as much as you can, and try to make sure that they, that they feel good about what they're doing, even to the point where I've made the mistake, or what's the opposite of a mistake? Because obviously, what's that?
I just said the success of something.
I've made the success and the mistake of dating some singers that I've worked with, and one of them in particular had a very funny habit of being like, "So wait, when you're producing me, you're actually manipulating me into thinking that I did a good performance." And I'm like, "Well, yes. So, maybe on the first few takes, but
Right.
you're really great. So eventually you're giving a good performance. But maybe first take, I might be manipulating you." And then she's like, "Well, how can I trust you now, though?" And I'm like, "I guess you're right." So there's definitely, there's a lot of psychology, and there's a lot of, just trying to, I don't know. It's really hard. It's really hard to make a really good record, and it's really hard to get a really breathtaking performance out of musicians, singers. And then the fucking lawyer walks into the room, and then he starts talking about how he doesn't like the bridge. And it's like, what the fuck are you doing
it's
here?
like you're out of your depth. You're out of your element.
It's, managing all the personalities within a studio setting, and just the whole thing is really, I love it. And I even love the challenge of trying to make personalities work together.
Yeah.
I just had a nightmare session where, okay, here we go. Here's a story I think I can tell, and I won't name any names. So we hired 3 background singers, and I knew one of them very well.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that she's the kind of person that tries to take charge of the session. And in addition to these 3 girls, we hired this guy who is legendary as a choir director. And he's a Hammond organ player, choir director, incredible. And we were like, all right, you're going to arrange these vocals for these girls, and you're going to kind of coach them. And we kind of expected him to sing with them. But it was very obvious when the singers walked in that they didn't want him helping in any way, shape, or form.
Oh,
and the
goodness.
one singer girl was just trying to take over the session in a way. And it sucks, because if it would have just been me and the singers, I think it would have gone really well. And I think, because I've handled this woman's tendency to take over things. I've handled that before, and she's a really great singer, and we work well together in the end. But the combination of her and this choir director was oil and water, And it just didn't, and by the end, the girls are like, okay, blah, blah's name. You're not allowed to come in the room and tell us what to sing. You have to tell Tim what to tell us to sing. And then I ended up in a situation where I'm like translating.
Yeah.
I don't know if that, I feel like I went off topic a little bit, but I was thinking back to like a good studio story. It was hell. It was, like the singers were supposed to be there for 2 hours. We were all there till 4 a.m. and nothing got done. Like no good work got done that day. And it was all because I was managing personalities, and I was managing personalities that I knew weren't going to work. And also I have enough experience. I turned to the client, the songwriter, and I turned to him about 2 hours into the session. And I said, we've lost control of this session. I'm just letting you know, nothing's going to get done today. And he's kind of newer to the industry, and he was like, you know what? I'm going to go give him a pep talk, and I'm going to
fix everything.
Fucking bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And I love him for that. I was like, you go ahead. You do that, buddy. And, and then literally 9 hours later at 4 a.m, the third background singer had quit for the 10th time. And we're like, all right, this didn't work. Sorry.
Yeah, it's got to be
so many stories like that.
I can only imagine just like the necessity to be the one person to try to keep everybody on the right chart, on the right charted path when everybody's pulling away from that path. And one other thing as well, it seems like a lot of it is just kind of helping to be that push to instill confidence in people who are dealing with varying degrees of self-doubt. So having to be that person, are there ever times where it's like you may have self-doubt about your ability to produce a quality session, or your ability to keep everybody on the same path, and how do you manage that? Because it could be a lonely spot at times, I bet, being the one person that everybody turns to. And it's like, if you're like, oh well, like this is not going to maybe be as good as it can be, you just kind of have to deal with it, or it's got to be a tough spot.
Once again, I harken back to another answer I gave, where like when I'm in the moment, when I'm actually with an artist, I'm with a group of musicians, narcissism just takes over.
Yeah.
I have no self-doubt when I'm in the studio, and to a terrible degree, to the point that it's definitely unhealthy. But like I'm definitely fooling myself, but I have nothing but confidence. I get home that night and the self-doubt creeps in. But luckily I have like some sort of defense mechanism within my brain that keeps me from feeling that when, I guess it's like adrenaline, or I don't know what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of like a fight or flight response, because like when you step into that arena, like you have to be the guy, and like you have to believe that you're the guy and know that you're the guy, because that's what people are looking for you to be. So
it's been recently that I've really been reflecting on it, which is probably dangerous.
Don't do that.
I might learn something about myself, and we wouldn't want that. No. But I'm gonna have to tell my therapist. But like it's been kind of recently that like literally I get home and I like turn on a show and I eat a little weed gummy, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Am I even capable of handling what's going to happen tomorrow? And it's like, okay, well, I don't know, but
has that gotten easier or harder as the years then? Like, are you more critical of yourself now than you were when you first started, or are you more critical with your work now?
I'm more self-aware now. I don't know if I'd say critical, because specifically, like, I've always been critical, but once again, like I look back at me in my 20s and my early 30s, and I think about how I didn't believe that I deserved to be on the national scale or the world. I didn't believe that I was world class. God damn it! Are they really gonna do the fucking? They're going to do the thing where they leaf blow right now. So
oh, man.
It might get really bad in here. If you guys hear that it got too bad, let me know. Anyway,
Drew will fix it. No.
Come on, Drew. RX that shit, bro.
Whatever you do, come on. You got to show up.
I love shit talking Drew
Just
when
wait.
we know he's gonna hear it.
Oh yeah, we're getting
So
there.
good.
We're getting there.
But yeah, like I didn't believe that I was world class. And even in saying that, hearing myself say that I may or may not be world class feels like a strange thing to say about myself. But it's just, as long as people believe in me and are paying me money to make their music, I have to believe that about myself, because
Right.
otherwise, what is any of this?
Yeah.
I'll go into a complete existential crisis if I let myself think about that too far.
No, it makes
But
a lot of sense. And I think that level of awareness kind of only comes with, all of the experience that you have in the industry. And I mean, you're a jack of all of the trades of the music industry, and you have so much experience. So, with that in mind, I mean, I think music has such an allure for people, and there's a lot of people that want to, in some way, shape, or form, make a career out of music or have music be a part of their career. So, with all of your experience and the things that you've learned, are there any, token pieces of advice that, when people come to you for mentorship, or, you meet a young person in the studio, that are there a couple of things that, you can give people to lean on, or just different flagships that, of advice?
it's different for everybody, but I do end up in a lot of like moments of mentorship with people. I mean, Drew knew what the fuck he was doing, and but like there was certainly a level of mentorship with him.
Yeah.
The guy who's kind of doing what Drew did, his successor right now, this
Much
really
better.
talented kid named Jack. What was it?
I said
What
he's
did I
like
miss?
much better than Drew.
He's like way better than
He's
Drew.
like, he's like way easier to work with.
Let the Drew roasting begin.
Absolutely.
But actually, like last night, we finished up a session around 2:00 in the morning. It was an awesome session that went very well, but still, it was kind of grueling. We worked like 10 a.m. to 4 in the morning. It was a long day, and we had a lot of fun. But like at the end of the day, I was kind of giving him. We were actually talking about another artist that we had worked with a few days previous, and we were talking about how that specific artist had very obvious self-doubt things.
Right.
And at one point, I said something, and it triggered my friend Jack to say, like, well, what does that say about me? And I was like, yeah. And it turned into like you have to believe in yourself. Like, you do have this thing. You have a lot of talent, and you belong here. You're here for a reason. You belong here. And, it's different for everybody. But yeah, I give a lot of pep talks. I love pep talks.
It sounds like, and I was gonna say the same thing. Like any advice for artists or young producers, or even people like us who are doing anything with sound and like doing a podcast. And I think Chris, what he's trying to say is we shouldn't doubt ourselves when we're doing this.
Exactly. No,
We can
I
take
mean, look
this
at you
to the
guys.
top.
How many? So where's your? I don't know much about the podcast. I've just talked to Drew about it, but I really need to dig in. Like, where's your biggest following? What social media is your biggest following on this podcast?
Well, the Instagram page is the biggest. We have almost 400,000 followers. But when you take the podcast, we're, by the time this will come out, we're over 90 weeks in. We do every single week. We have a weekly listener base of about, 6,000 or 7,000 people. So we've built it up into a consistent model. And, it's just one of those things that I think, we're always trying to get better, and we're always trying to just provide a good product for people, because I think we like to make this for people who are like us, who have similar passions. And that's why we love talking to people who have similar passions,
400,000 is amazing. I mean, like, so there we go. And
Yeah.
I mean, you're obviously doing the fucking right thing. And if 400,000 people believe in it and give a shit, then the proof's in the pudding. That's awesome. Yeah,
it's been fun. I mean, it's just we've been really consistent with it, but I think that sometimes we talk about it on air too. So like, I don't know when this thing's gonna crash and burn, but we joke about it all the time because that's what you do, and
But we're from Philly.
Yeah.
You and I are from Philly, and I feel like, especially just following Philly sports for so long, you and I just went through two
Yep.
very crushing moments.
Yeah.
We're always waiting for the other shoe to drop. Are you still a Philly sports fan?
I am, yeah. I mean, I grew up in a weird. My dad was a Cowboys fan when he was younger, so he and like
Bye.
my
Later.
I know.
Yeah, that's
signing
it.
off.
Call's over.
But like my cousins and all my cousins and my close friends, like everybody's diehard Eagles fan. My dad just doesn't like them, so it's this weird like split. But I'm like I love the Philly sports. I love the idea that it's like we flew too close to the sun. We burned up. That was what it was.
Well, that's the thing. Another Philly friend of mine who's out here now, he lives in San Francisco, but he's from Jersey actually, but he was like, isn't it fun? Like when you grow up around us, I think it's because of Philly sports. You're constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah.
And you just said it about your own podcast. You're like, I mean, we all know it's going to crash or whatever. It's funny. It's an innate thing. And of course I have it too. And like
it's like that crate challenge where everybody's like climbing to the top and you just video it because something's gonna happen.
Yeah,
we're gonna keep going
you're gonna
until
fall. It's just a matter of when, which crate.
Exactly. But I guess what I try to tell myself and I try to tell all of my clients is that despite the fact that I know so deep in my soul that is true, the other shoe is going to drop, you can't believe that.
Yeah.
You actually can't live your life believing that.
Yeah.
And it's a weird thing that I think that Philadelphians, like we do that to ourselves. Do people from everywhere do that to themselves? I don't know. Because I meet a lot of people also in the music industry. You meet the funny people who you're like, I can't believe that guy believes in himself.
Oh, yeah.
This shit is terrible. He has no talent. And here he is.
Unloading money and
dropping six figures on a few weeks in the studio, and it's what he blindly believes in himself that much. How do I have self-doubt? Mm-hmm. And I don't know.
Yeah, I do think. Jokes aside, that's definitely a common theme of everything we've talked about, and that is if you put your mind to it and you got to believe it, that's the best way to get to where you want to go. And it's
100%.
that's always gonna. Hard work is really important. Talent is really important, but simple belief and just knowing that it's going to work out and you're going to get to where you want. That's how you get to where you want to go. And that's why I always,
100%.
I'll give Drew some props. That's why I loved working with him and playing with him. He always pushed his guitar ability to being like Eddie Van Halen and trying to be like those guys and then moving out. It's like, I'm going to move out to LA. I did the same thing. Like I moved twice to get to Alabama where I'm doing athletics and, yeah,
what's your sport, Ethan?
I'm a javelin thrower, so I'm training for the 2024 Olympics. I'm not on the team, but I'm gonna make the team in 2024. I just missed it, but that's how I moved. I went to Pittsburgh and then Kentucky, and then I moved here. So I'm doing the same thing. Where it's like I always said, if I didn't do athletics, I'd be doing the same thing in a band, trying to make it big. But right now it's athletics. So
wow, that's incredible. What a what's the pool of javelin? I'm sorry, I turned into the interviewer for a second. I'll move out of this for a second.
We called it. We knew this was going to happen. That's all good.
What's the pool of javelin? How many javelin throwers are there in the U.S.? Ballpark.
Counting the, college scene, hard to say. I don't. What do you think, Chris? Probably
there's got to be
a couple thousand.
Yeah, maybe 5,000.
5,000 that decided to pick it up.
And you're number 5
in the U.S. Yeah.
Yeah, so 5 out of 5,000. That's all the proof you need,
Yeah,
but more.
No, and that's
it's tough because it is. I guess it's more of a European event. Like there's a lot more throwers over there, but I finished ranked number 61 last year in the world, which is pretty cool.
That's great. Yeah, as you can hear, the guy's right next to my building right
he's
now.
He's ripping away. Right when we're on the emotional moment right here of belief, this guy is just hammering away out there. But
it's also a good moment to lean into Ethan's javelin throwing. I don't know how much because then we can use his mic a lot.
Right.
Exactly.
It's been good.
That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah, that's how Chris and I bonded over music a lot because he was also a track and field athlete. And, working out and listening to Rage Against the Machine obviously is synonymous, or Soundgarden. So that type of music, I think, in, waking up early. Like we kind of got connected with that music. Same thing in high school. Like we did a lot. I think we both just working out and I don't know, through the high school grind, I guess. But it's always nice to pair those two, athletics and music together.
And it is cool. It's like I think anybody, no matter what area it's in, like anybody who's had enough guts to like believe in a dream and take a shot for it, I think everybody kind of has that common understanding. It's like, okay, well, like you've done it too, you're doing it too, and definitely, speaking back to like what you said with Drew and the band that you guys were in, like Drew's that person for this show. Like, I mean, he's more often than not, he's the one out of the three of us, myself, Ethan, and Drew. Drew's always the one who's like, guys, like this is something. Like you guys have something here. Like you guys, like there's room to grow here, and there's higher heights that we can reach together. Where and it's funny, and I think it makes more sense with all of the time that he spent with you at Redstar and those experiences of kind of being that person to stay the course. Like he does that for us, and like the lines are just beginning to connect for me. That it's no surprise, having spoken with you for the last hour or so, and talking to Drew, like he embodies so much of those qualities, and we're really grateful to have him there, because I think with us, Ethan, like we've had those times where it's like, well, shit, like we got to do another one, like it never stops, and like what's the point or whatever. But yeah, Drew does a really good job with that. Absolutely.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it's really hard to like do that thing where you've got to put out content all the fucking time, and it's honestly, you guys absolutely know what it's like to be in a band or to be like a solo artist right now. That's what it's like. Like you have to continually put out product. You have to continually
push merch, push this,
engaging on social media. You have to be, it's pretty crazy. I'm just apologizing to all the listeners right now about that.
That's life, though. Sometimes the session, something will happen, and you got to keep everybody.
We got to believe that.
You just got to believe that they'll stop weed whacking.
Exactly. Sometimes that's what you have to do, but it is cool, and this is like, I mean, this conversation that we've had is exactly why I enjoy doing this, because I think, at least selfishly, like these conversations are super illuminating, and I think there's a lot, whether you're in the music industry or not, that you can apply to most anything that you do. And I mean, these are lessons of, once you've walked the path, I mean, there's a lot of value and a lot of things you can learn from people that have done it.
It's the corniest advice. Like, how many times do you have to hear somebody say, like, believe in yourself?
Right.
Before you're just like, who cares? But it's like, it sounds so fucking dumb. And especially, like, in the music industry, the whole thing is, like, you have to be cool all the time. You have to, like, dress cool, and you have to look cool, and you have to have cool-looking guitars. And it's the fucking corniest thing ever to hear, like, no, just believe in yourself. But it's so fucking true. It's like, it's embarrassing how true it is.
Yeah, it's like they were right all along with that bullshit cliche that they spoon-fed us. It's like...
Exactly. Fuck, they were right.
I can't believe they were right.
Yeah. So weird.
I guess I have like, well, one more thing, and then we can talk more about Drew. But it's funny because we're having this whole conversation. I know a lot of people listening don't probably know what engineering, producing, and type of and what all goes into it, and how, like, I love, again, talking to Drew, and he's talking about what he hears and stuff, and how he hears it differently now they start to do that. And I'm not, we're not going to try and dive into trying to explain that in any way that, it's good. I know that's a rabbit hole, but so in simplest terms, how can you talk about, say, one of the albums from 91 or 92 or 93, talk about what the, like, say, what the, like, Steve Albini or something, what kind of stuff did they do to enhance those records, right? In, like, simple terms, like, what is the job when you have a rock band, and how did it kind of take those albums and really help? Because I think, like I said, without going too deep into it, and, like, so which one would be your favorite and why, or even broader?
You just brought up Steve Albini. I think that's such a great guy to start with, because I think that everything about him is so fucking perfect. Even though I know some people who have worked with him and say that he's kind of difficult in certain ways, but that doesn't even matter. I think that making music is difficult. So being difficult is just a symptom. But I mean, like, number one, I don't know if anyone's ever read, it's a pretty legendary letter that he sent to Nirvana when they were negotiating the In Utero contract. Have you guys read that letter?
I think
I did at one point. I don't remember very many of the specifics of it, though.
One of the moments in it that really got me, that I've always tried to model myself after Steve on this specific thing, first and foremost, is he said to them, and so in saying this, artists that might work with me, don't think that I'm not going to ask for points on your record. I'm still going to ask for points on your record. But Steve Albini was much more established and already kind of a legend due to like the Pixies records and stuff at this point. But he said, I don't want points on your record, Nirvana. And this is talking about In Utero. And he said, consider me a plumber. Pay me for the day's work that I do. And that's all I want. And I especially with independent artists, I try to use that mentality, and that makes sense to a lot of independent artists when I say, like, just, we're going to work for a day, pay me for the day, and then we'll figure out the next thing next. But, like, you know, one day at a time, and I'm a plumber. I came over to your house, I fixed the fucking pipes, pay me for my time, cool. And it's a, like, there's something about producers and engineers, like, we have this self-aggrandizing bullshit going on in our minds because we're translators for musicians. We help. Most musicians don't know how to get the sound that they're after.
Yeah.
But they know what it is, and it's really fucking hard to tell somebody what the sound in your head is and actually get that to end up coming out of speakers. And so we're translators, so obviously we like self-aggrandize. We like make ourselves seem way more important than we actually are. But when I think of myself as a plumber, and when other people think of me as a plumber, it puts us on some sort of common ground. And that's something that's really important about Steve Albini and the way that he looks at the music business. That definitely didn't answer your question. But but Steve Albini, just balls of steel. Like, that In Utero record doesn't sound like any record ever. The drums sound, they're enormous. They sound like they're in a big room. The room tone of those drums is really ballsy. His drum miking and the rawness of that record for a record that think of Nirvana as a pop act, because that's what they were then, which is so weird I know it was weird for Kurt, and obviously like had some severe psychological effects on him, but like, you know, like being a pop act at that moment and making such a raw, garagey sounding record at that moment in time, that didn't happen. That was like Soundgarden's records sound slick compared to that. Pearl Jam's records obviously sound really 100%. Slick.
Because in Utero, it was just this big middle finger to everybody at Geffen who wanted Nevermind the sequel. I mean, for them to take that formula, throw it out, and completely circumvent it and give everybody something that challenged them, that was unlike anything that you were to hear, you know, on Top 40 radio in 91 or 92 or 93. It's unbelievable.
In Utero was 93, right?
Right.
I love you guys because you just know. Like, I'm pretty sure 93, but you're like, yes.
Anniversary day every year. Same day we post his anniversary posts.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, just like, and yeah, so as engineers, as producers, like, I mean, that's a really hard thing to do. It's a really hard thing to convince an artist of. I can name there's this really cool artist out of Philadelphia. It's a band called Ooh La La. They're just releasing, I think they just released a new song today that I didn't produce. But I produced their first record. Check it out. It's really fucking cool. The first record, what the hell is that record called? There's a single off of it called like Get Your Ass in That Space Camaro, I think. Really fucking cool record.
I love that.
But so these guys are awesome, and Michael Baker won't be mad at me for talking about this. I tried to do a really ballsy drum sound on that record. I had the drummer Mike Petrusco, really legendary, awesome Philly drummer. He played on it, and I had him tune his snare drum really ringy and trashy, and then I boosted a lot of more of trashy frequencies on the drum. You've heard some records that sound like a boom, pang, boom, pang. You know, that was what the snare sounded like. And Steve Albini got that to happen on a commercial success of a record. Ooh La La fought me on that snare sound, and we ended up taming it pretty hard. The drums still sound fucking amazing, and it's a great sounding record, and I'm really proud of it.
Check it out. Yeah.
But I really wanted, especially that song, but the whole record, I wanted the snare drum to be a statement, and I got shot down by the artist. And they might have been right, and there's still that's an interesting thing about producing. I don't know if they were right or not,
Right.
and we're never gonna know. I think that the art that we made is fucking phenomenal, and I'm proud of it. But so that I think I might now slightly be getting into answering your question.
We're getting
like
closer.
Steve Albini managed to convince an artist to probably adjust their vision a little bit, but also maybe that was Kurt and Dave and Chris's vision, and he just followed through with it. But either way, it was a ballsy thing, because in that scenario, the producer is also a go-between between the A&R of the label and the band. And that's somebody who I'm sure the A&R was not, I actually haven't read up on any of this, but I'm sure the A&R wasn't happy with the way that record sounded.
To put it lightly.
It sounds like demos in the most beautiful way. And it's the things that I don't know, like I love hearing a demo of a band, of a song, of a great legendary song, and hearing it in its rawest, shittiest, like recorded on a acetate fucking, like the old Beatles demos where they had the little acetate tape decks or whatever the fuck they had. And, it's just like George Harrison sitting there strumming All Things Must Pass.
Yeah.
And it's just
unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. It's just into his fucking tape deck. No echo on his voice, nothing, and that record, I think, is the closest that we'll probably ever get to like a really raw rock and roll record that was a fucking commercial success.
Yeah.
And I, who knows? I'm sure that the band had a lot to do with that vision, because obviously all fucking visionaries. And then they had a visionary producing and behind the console, and that's what happened. And yeah, that's our responsibility. Like, that's what I was getting at. Our responsibility is an artist says, or usually they don't say this is what I want. It's just we sit there, and hopefully I have a varied enough musical experience that they can say, they can play their song and they can give me a few things that they say about it, and I can be like, I know what you want. And 4 months later, they can be listening and be like, yes, this is exactly what I fucking wanted. And yeah. And especially when it's such a ballsy move, like In Utero, and it's just like, what a fucking... All right, this is officially just a Steve Albini dick-sucking podcast. I love it.
Hell yeah. We're covering all the bases. We're talking about grunge. We're talking about Steve Albini. We're roasting Drew. I mean, this has all of the ingredients of a killer episode.
I need a good Drew story before we leave from the studio, if you can think of one or that.
Okay, well, do you guys know
Plenty.
know the nickname that I called Drew?
I don't think I do.
I don't think we do.
Drooby-Doo.
Oh, yeah,
Drooby-Doo. Where are you?
Drooby-Doo. I think it's a common nickname for Drews, but Drew... See, I'm anti-roasting Drew here because I'm sure he doesn't love that nickname.
We can lift him up.
But here's... Jenny Lindberg of Warpaint gave him that nickname.
Really?
Yeah. He talked about that a lot, that project.
And that was a really fucking cool project. That was a really fun project. Spring Summer is the name of that record that Drew and I did. That's a cool one. And Jenny Lindberg. Oh, I can give Jenny some love and some hate on the podcast because I totally produced the record. But Jenny was like, no, I produced the record. And she's just way more famous than me. So I just had to be like, fine.
All right, you produced the
But
record.
we all the first day she was like, we're all co-producing this record, and I was like, rad, and I was like, cool, and then she was like, nah, I produced the record, and I was like, fine.
I changed my mind.
I changed my mind. But she's so fucking rad, and yeah, that was a fun one. But Drew got the nickname Drewby Doo during those, which I've learned a lot of Drews have that nickname now, but.
It's like Scooby Doo, Drooby Doo. Yeah, kind of.
Well, yeah, no, it was definitely a Scooby Doo. But it was just like she just started calling him that one day, and none of us even questioned it. And all of a sudden, it was like,
nice.
And I don't know. Nobody famous ever gave me a fucking nickname, Drew. Fucked up.
I know that's egregious right there.
Yeah, Drew's in there for fucking a few weeks, and all of a sudden,
he's got a nickname.
Jenny 13's calling him Drooby Doo.
Hell yeah.
It's good. No, that was a lot of fun. Oh man, Jenny's. I like that. I'm glad I put that on the record. Jenny's gonna fucking murder me over this if she hears it. So hopefully she hears it.
Yeah.
That's what we're after. We're after killer sound bites that
Exactly.
are gonna get people in trouble.
Yes,
That's how you make it. It's not about consistency. It's just about
that's
baiting
the best
people.
part of making a podcast, right? Is that you get to.
Yeah.
Is this a podcast or a vodcast? Do you guys do video?
It's both, actually.
We do both.
Okay.
Yeah, so we released the audio version on all of the podcast normal sites, and then we have a YouTube page where we throw up the
And yes,
the audio,
we know
or
we need to
throw up
get
the
out
visual as well.
external cameras. That's what Drew's been telling us. He's like, we gotta get you cameras and lighting, so we're working on that too.
Yep, that's the next.
You know
phase.
what though? I mean, like I'm
And
looking like
microphones.
no, I don't think you do. I think.
There we go.
I don't know. There's so many. I mean, I love music, but I don't really like. So in my normal life, I try to like when I'm not in the studio. When I'm not in the studio, I don't listen much to music, and
That's
I don't
what Drew
really,
said when he was working. Yeah, he said the same thing.
So I watch and listen to a lot of like comedy podcasts and vodcasts, and I forget the name of the one that Kyle Kinane's always on. But it's so good and it looks like shit. And like, who cares? You know, like, it's good. Like, if the content's good, I think people, especially in this TikTok generation, I think people are getting used to seeing just like shitty FaceTime videos of people talking into like consumer level microphones and, you know, just giving you interesting content. I think the world's ready for it.
I love this. So we officially have your endorsement to not change a goddamn thing.
Yes. you have a successful Los Angeles producer, engineer telling you no good mics, no new cameras. You hear that, Drewby Doo?
You hear that? You hear
Fuck
that
that.
weed whacker in the back? Keep it in.
Yeah,
Keep
exactly.
that shit
Turn
in.
it up.
Keep it in.
Turn up
that's
the
a
weed
Philly.
whacker, Drew.
That's Philly, baby. You know, it's like they say in Always Sunny. We have our ways, and we're dug in, and we're not changing.
Oh yeah, we need the weed whackers all day long.
This is absolutely amazing. I cannot think of a better way to close this down than that final tidbit. We're digging in. Tim, this was so much fun.
Chris,
to have
right
these
back at you,
conversations.
Ethan. So much fun. This was amazing.
This was great. I'm really, really thankful that you were able to come on, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I know I did.
I did. I got a little stressed out with the weed whacker, but I think
That's
I'm
all
okay
right, though,
now.
because that's,
Took me a minute.
that's
Inclusion
Philly.
at the
That's what
end.
it's about.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah.
They'll be fine. I'm sure the listeners will be fine. And if you guys have made it to the end of this, thank you. And yeah, again, thank you very much. Tim.
Never done with the self-deprecation.
No.
That's 215 for life. Yes, sir.
Yeah. One last punch thrown in there at ourselves. We'll do it. We're gonna do it in the pre and the post roll too. So,
Always.
but
Hell
hey.
yeah.
All right. Thank you again. Rock and roll, Tim.
Appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Tim.
Fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Take it easy, y'all.
And there we have it, a lovely conversation with Tim Sonnefeld. Thank you so much, Tim, once again for coming on. That was a lot of fun to be able to do that. And it's kind of one of those things where I think the hardest part of the interview process is just getting schedules to line up. But, Tim was great. He was able to move some things around and, get on the podcast, which was really, really fun. I'm happy that we were able to share this conversation with everybody because, we really, really enjoyed it. So thank you once again, Tim, for taking the time. Really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, I think every interview we've done has exceeded expectations. It always is a lot more fun than kind of we expect and more energizing. And usually the product is really fun to listen to.
It's a lot more fun than just talking to you, Ethan. I'm tired of that shit.
Yeah, I know. This duo, this dialogue is not enough.
Yeah, it's awful. It's really, really terrible.
Luckily, that's why we have other people come in. So
exactly.
But yeah, it was really solid. I mean, it's just great. So happy to have him as a friend now and have him on our side, hopefully. And look forward to getting out to LA again and breaking bread with him. That sounds like a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's skyrocketed to the top of the list when we make it back to LA. Hopefully, I think we can make a 2023 trip out there at some point. That'd be good. Yeah, we got to get back there. But that'll just about do it for the informational portion of the podcast. As we mentioned at the top of the show, if you'd like to support us, you can view the show notes for all of the relevant links as to how to do that. You can subscribe wherever you're listening, leave a review if you're able to, go purchase some merchandise. Little late for the holidays now, but New Year's gift, January gift, February gift for the Grunge Bible fan in your life, because I know there's a lot of them. So we have to keep the people happy. And, additionally, the Patreon is always open and welcoming of new individuals who want to support us. So thank you in advance. We've had a lot of people come and go over the years, but it all helps. And I'm thankful for all of them.
Yeah, and we just got word from our producer that we have a campaign for new microphones. So
we do. The capital campaign is officially underway.
We're getting strict orders from the producer that we need new microphone. They're of course extremely expensive. So
So we're raising funds. So if you want to help make that dream a
don't
reality,
be mad at us. Blame Drew.
That's the thing. I mean, it's not us. It's never our faults. It's never our faults.
We would do it with AirPods, if it was not a big deal. But we want the best.
Apparently
product.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a very big deal.
But yeah, shout out to Drew for one, just doing great work, always being there for us, and also setting us up with this interview. Props to you. You're doing a great job there.
Absolutely. I echo all of those statements. So before we go, we'd like to issue the penultimate Song of the Week selections of 2022.
That's right. We're getting towards the end.
We are. We have one more week, and next week, as we mentioned last week, the episode coming out on the 26th is a very special episode. So, looking forward to that one.
It's a surprise. It's
a surprise.
It's a Christmas present. It is a Christmas present. I mean, it's parallel to when you come down, you get to see your first bike, under the tree, maybe.
Got the nice bow on it. Exactly.
Yeah, or something of that. Something like that.
It's gonna be great. But Ethan, do you have any song?
Yeah, I do. Do I have any song? I do. I have.
Yeah, I was gonna finish that sentence, but I stopped because I'm like, I was gonna say, do you have any songs you would like to share with us? But you only share one song, so grammatically that didn't make sense. So I just decided to cut it. You knew what I meant. And I was like, it's not worth it. I just explained it, so I guess it was worth it. But I don't know, man. It's been a long week.
That's right. A lot of recording. A lot of work going on.
A lot of traffic.
A late night last night, I guess.
Yeah, burning the midnight oil. It's never easy.
My song is a song that came up. The EP is a new EP dropped maybe a month ago or something like that. I'm not sure, but in 2022. And I know that you listened to him, and this is this is kind of my first. I think this was my first listen to him. I don't think I really knew much of his other stuff, but it's Jack K's. He released his EP Cessation, I believe. It's CES, so Cessation. And the song was Wish You Well that came up. And it's really good.
I like that song.
It's I think it's like 2.5 minutes maybe. And I remember the first time I listened to it, I clicked it, and it was one of those, when you click into a song, sometimes it just goes repeat. And I listened to it, and it just kept going. And I didn't realize that the song restarted. Yeah. And I was like, this song is like so good. And I was like, how long is it? And I was like, oh wait, like I'm definitely on like my third or four here. And it's just a great song. He's got an awesome voice. that is just unique, and it's just a really good, you know, acoustic song, and very
awesome.
well done by him, and it was really good. So I got into that EP a little bit, and it's really solid. But that's definitely my favorite of his catalog for now.
Great, yeah. Jack Case is really awesome, and if I remember correctly, he's a Song of the Week alumnus. I think I picked Middle of the End sometime earlier in the summer. Yeah, really good song. But
that's right. I know that song too.
Yeah, really talented, and you know, kind of just starting out. It's one of those artists that, you know, if Jack Case is coming through my area, it's like the perfect time to be able to go see them and have a special night, you know, at a small venue, because artists like this, when they hook you immediately, you got to start the clock in your head of before, you know, they start playing bigger and bigger shows, and you can kind of, you know, strike it out to get that intimate, that cool moment. So yeah, Jack Case is one of them that I would love to see kind of retroactively adding to my wish list from last week's episode. Yeah, I'd love to see Jack Case in 2023. So thank you for reminding me of that EP. It's been a little bit since I listened to it, so I appreciate that, and it's a very worthy entry into the Song of the Week playlist.
Right. So, yeah, it's a good one. Yeah. Your turn.
Yeah, it is my turn. So there's not really anything that's like super winding my clock right now. So normally the protocol for me is I just go to. That's not Pearl Jam. It's not Pearl Jam. It's actually
Alice
it's just
in Chains.
yeah. It's a song called "Man in the Box." It's a deep cut
Wood?
from their first album. Dude, I'm so fucking tired of the Wood thing. We really need. We should just stop doing that.
Same old trip. I mean, yeah,
it's been that for like 3 years now.
The nice part is, like, I mean, we did it. It's done. We had a really nice run. So now we don't need to do it every day, because the luster, I think, has worn off with the people too. I mean, so, but dude, like
people still love it though. It's fucked. Like every Monday they're like, "Thank you, Grunge Bible." I'm like, I'm not doing anything. Like if I missed a Monday.
Yeah, but you could come back with it like in 2 weeks later, and I think people would be just
sure. Like people will always remember that with the page now.
That's what I mean. Like it's stuck, which is what we, I guess, wanted. So
I guess. I mean, we were just trolling in the beginning. We weren't trying to make this anything, but
people hated it to start.
It's funny. There's another grunge page that kind of copied this, and they do instead of we do Into the Flood, we do Wood on Mondays. They do Interstate Love Song Sundays. So
really,
yeah, I guess imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. So I feel relatively flattered. Yeah, I fucking hate that shit.
I hate it.
It's terrible.
I hate that.
Yeah. So I guess you know, for a lack of brevity, none of those songs that I just mentioned are my song of the week. This is just a song that's on a playlist that I've been listening to a little bit lately. We're gonna go back to 1970 and Fleetwood Mac's album Kiln House, and the song is called Station Man. So if you're not super familiar with Fleetwood Mac, a lot of their earlier stuff, I believe it was with Peter Green, he was kind of the head at the time, super bluesy, like really bluesy stuff. This was before Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks joined Fleetwood Mac, but Station Man was a song, I think I first discovered it on the day that I discovered the legend of the Big Beat, Buddy Miles and Dreams.
The Big Beat is back.
The Big Beat is back, yeah. So Station Man, it's just a great song to kind of, you know, get yourself into that alternative mindset, and you know, just kind of let it take you where it needs to go. So
I'm gonna listen to that this weekend.
Yeah, Station Man, dude. Fleetwood Mac. It's 52 years old, but it's still hits the spot. So I don't know if we've had Fleetwood Mac on the Song of the Week list or not. So there's no better time than now. But you know, sorry, Lindsay and Stevie, you're not making the list this time.
Yeah, not technically.
Better luck next year.
You know who's not making the list?
Who's that?
John Bon Jovi.
Dude, fuck John Bon Jovi.
If you're still listening at the end of the pod, you get to hear straight from Chris and I's mouth that we do not endorse John Bon Jovi.
We fucking hate John Bon Jovi.
Sometimes you need to, you know, it's like my dad once said, like, my dad says, like, you can't support everybody, and you know what?
You can't.
I can't do it anymore. I'm not going to act like it either.
If like
I'm not living on a prayer.
No, not at all.
I'm out.
I'm not riding on a steel horse. It's one of those things where, like, honestly, my feelings for John Bon Jovi are so strong and so negative that if I was tasked with choosing between like, hey, you can support somebody or you can just rail on John Bon Jovi, I'm gonna rail on John Bon Jovi. Like whoever I could support, they can get my support the next day. But now, fuck John Bon Jovi.
All my energy is going into this, and it's one of those things where I'm just like, if you ask me why, I'm just so riled up and so hot that I can't come up with a reason.
It doesn't matter why. I hate him so much.
I'm just clouded. You know,
yeah,
there's so
it's
much
terrible.
going
I'm
on.
not thinking clearly. The only thing that I know is that I hate John Bon Jovi. That's it.
I would. Oh man, just
like I'm just seeing red everywhere except like right in my pupils. I see John Bon Jovi's face, and I'm upset.
I just want to punch it, you know.
It's terrible, but yeah. So that's everybody's reward for staying on through the end of the episode.
That's how we finished this episode. Yeah, that's exactly
that went off the rails pretty quickly.
Yeah, well, we needed that. We needed some color.
I feel better now. Yeah.
Yeah, so do I. Anyway, so thank you everybody for listening. Thank you. It's been a wonderful time, and we will be back next week with the most important episode of the year, honestly, ever.
I think of the podcast's history.
Yes. So it is a must listen, a do not miss. So mark your calendars, put those notifications on, download whatever, because you're gonna want to hear it.
Yeah. Make sure your post notifications are enabled.
Exactly.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next week.
All right, see ya. Fuck Bon Jovi.
Fuck John Bon Jovi.
See ya.
See you later.